Welcome to the channel, Media Literacy Dream. I am Daru, you can call me D. I'm here with Zenon10, you can call him Zen for short. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Jujutsu Kaisen manga and the anime. Before we get into that, just a little bit about myself and kind of where I'm coming from. I've had a formal private high school arts education and majored in animation. I have my own Instagram. You can check out some information in the description where you can see my art. That's less important right now, as is to just say that I have a lot of artistic experience that breaches from at least over a decade. I very seriously look into juxtaposition of scenes, narrative iteration, looking at storytelling, and there's some important things I think that I've seen over the course of the third season coming out that have kind of highlighted some things that I find interesting. One of them being that the Japanese fan base for Jujutsu Kaisen has issue with the show, and it kind of came to a head in I think about the fourth episode with Maki and her characterization of killing the Zenin clan, with the context to the manga and some other things, and American audiences that are, strictly for the show and anime only, really took appreciation for some of the tasteful takes of the references, the callbacks, the cinematography, which are all good things. I will kind of dial back and just say, in my analysis of this, I am the author and illustrator of a webcomic series on Webtoons. I've been updating it this year, and hopefully you guys will see more of it. And I'll leave information as it develops, because I've been actually revamping it from the beginning to end, and I have the first chapter updated. It's a cool little thing. If you actually see some of the chapters between the more recent stuff, more recent for when it was updated, and the first one that I just really updated, the difference is pretty stark, because I was taking it more seriously now that I'm trying to hit it again. And I say this to say, it's really important, the intentionality of what you're staging and putting across. Yeah, that characterization in part is the reason why I think the Japanese audience who know the manga in context are kind of missing some important characterization of the characters. It's less egregious in the beginning as it is in some other parts more recently that are coming up. If you're not reading the manga and you watch the show, it is gorgeous. It's well animated. The show looks beautiful and is executed very well. And I think I've been enjoying the season so far. I think this critique is evidence of a great series, because it looks great from the show and it looks great from the manga, but they are vastly different in the feel of certain things, and it's very subtle. And I think that it's interesting to highlight. And I mean, there's another point to be made that I'm going to talk about later. How we consume the media we're watching is super important, because I think people are robbing themselves of the appreciation for the show as something separate than the manga. And also for people that consume the manga content, I think that they are missed in some sort of representation of what's happening in the show. And I think that's something that's causing frustration for people, and they're not really articulating it well when they have kind of these ranty disagreements online. Because there's been a lot of online backlash that I feel is unwarranted. Before I go on, is there anything that you want to say, you want to add?
I would say I've just been a fan of animation in general, cinema in general. Definitely a super big fan of comic books, big Marvel fan, big DC fan, like the Dark Horse comics too, some of that stuff. Definitely Vertigo being super underrated. I didn't really delve into manga until kind of maybe looking more into the show, to be honest. So my perspective is kind of more of the, kind of like the outsider, maybe a little bit more of just a cat who is looking at this from the perspective of someone who just likes a good story, who likes a good cartoon. Definitely, like I have that background of just seeing other stuff in general, kind of liking it, seeing how the people in different fandoms or communities move. Definitely been to Comic-Con a couple times, never been to an anime con though. So I would say that's kind of my perspective, or that's my POV. And so a lot of the stuff that I do see is not necessarily maybe all the nitty-gritty stuff that Daru's catching, but maybe kind of like the stuff that is really, really big and like kind of high level that it kind of bleeds over into my timeline, or kind of like on my For You page of like, did you know that people thought this? And I'm like, no. It's my first time hearing it. But even in that though, I think it's still interesting. Definitely, I think this is a very underrated story. Even not talking about this with Daru right away, but just kind of seeing how it is very misunderstood in general in terms of whatever the writer's intention is, to then having the anime kind of adaptation, to then how the manga only fandom is looking at it versus anime only versus both. People kind of having different cultural contexts on how they view it as well. What the characters actually kind of were intended to be developed, and then how it actually was executed. And I think a honestly, a lot of people just kept missing the point, you know? And that's where I would say media literacy dream is kind of coming into play, where it's like, you know, did you kind of get the point? This isn't just a fighting anime. There's definitely a lot of metaphors on what fighting styles actually indicate about people's personalities and their intentions. And that's my take on it before we dive in. And so I hope you enjoy the next couple takes we got to give on you on this.
I think on that too, I would go kind of on something important you highlighted on personality, because this chapter for 138 is literally right after the last thing that happens in season 2 for the Shibuya incident. In the manga, it jumps to, because you're reading, obviously the experience is different than if you're watching a show. There's a break between seasons, context is missed. In the beginning of the season, you get Yuji reliving some trauma. You see him dealing with the curses that come up because, well, in the beginning of this season, it's right after third season, but there is an assumption of time has passed. And time does pass, but they want you to stick with Yuji as a directive choice, which isn't bad. It's just without the seamlessness of reading, you kind of need to have that shoe back into the story. So I'm jumping ahead, you know, in where the episode leaves off. It's about 6.5 minutes in where you come back to the Zenin clan and the chapter would pick up. And there are a lot of things to say about Naoya Zenin, the sorcerer that's supposed to be the head of the Zenin clan, different things happening. Mai and Maki's mother is not the only one fundamentally, like, she walks with him. There's some idea of, you know, servitude of him being an head runner-up. This is, I think, done a little bit more in the show than it is in the manga. The choice of that, I think, is to kind of help push the concept that Naoya is this really sexist, like, he doesn't appreciate people around him, or in service to him, or around, like, he's just not a grateful person. And there's like this arrogance as a youth, but still in a traditional home, which follows like how he's dressed. Piercings, dyed hair, traditional Zenin clan clothes. When we talk about staging, there is something that is important that is done different, which is a directive choice. I mean, if you're looking at the show, just coming in, no context to the manga, the thing that the show does that the manga doesn't really grasp is give you a feel for ambience of the Zenin clan's home, the coldness of it, the way that it is a very traditional Japanese mansion. You know, there are places in the show that are more modern, and this is not one of them. You know, they have this context. I mean, obviously it's current day. They are a traditional family. They have this old power, history to them. This kind of sets that up pretty well. You have Naoya, who is talking bad about Mai and Maki, but when he comes in, the staging of the scene in the show is distinctly different than in the manga. And it's subtle, but it is actually kind of a big deal, where there's almost this really dramatic, not thriller vibe to it, but all of them are very seriously are here in this grim space with each other. And in the beginning, Naoya is like kind of joking around, but there's panels in the manga that kind of show a weird level of immaturity from Naoya in the face of seriousness that is a little missed here. Like, he's 100% a jackass, a very unattractive quality for him as a person, and he's meeting a lot of their stoic, swarthy attitude that they have as adult men with kiddish charm, kind of putting them on his level in a very disrespectful way. He only gets more serious when he's talking about things related to his ego, which is something you see in the manga way more than you do, like, it's shown in the show, but the way it's staged is just less intentional than the setting of the mood of the scene. And when I say that, there is obviously in shows you have the color direction, the staging, the lighting, and the sound score, right? I bring this up because with certain things, what you don't hear is an opportunity missed as well. In this manga, imagine him coming up, there is some sort of theatrical score when he is lighthearted, or some change in it to help indicate his mood. There isn't really that to reinforce that concept, and it's mostly just shown, you know, in this dramatic way, which is really well done. Again, if I was watching this just for the show, I'm seeing a lot of drama. I'm seeing a lot of this serious, slow-paced tone, moments from his attitude, and this is where not having some of that range from like the tone of the scene, you're missing an opportunity where Naoya is respectfully showing without telling that he is a step above these other two sorcerers. You have Junichi, the other Zenin clan member with the scar on his face and the long hair, just not fast enough to catch him. And then Ogi Zenin, Mai and Maki's dad, he's not going to kill Naoya. Naoya's the head. And these are traditional men. It's either he's going to try to kill him or he's not doing anything. And there's a panel where Naoya is so so confident in this. He doesn't even try to move away from Ogi's blade or an attack that he gives just because he's that confident, and it's arrogance. And that's something that's not shown in the show at all. And there's something in the show that I want to say that I actually like a lot, but it is a mischaracterization because, again, even when the little old man with the spinny, I don't know how to say it other than like the turd hairstyle, he gets in and he's telling them about the will. Naoya is smiling, grinning ear to ear, happy to hear that he's the head. The other two are still serious and stoic, right? And there's that range of drama, like the concept of a reversal in acting or screen direction is subverting some of expectation through narrative pacing. He's up his own ass about his ego. So he doesn't care up until he hears that Megami is the clan head, since Gojo is respectfully sealed, and it's what do they call it in law terms when there's a loophole?
A hidden clause.
Megami's the clan head now.
Like a conditional clause.
Exactly. Yeah. Hearing this, he flips his shit. I mean, it's obviously made to make him look deranged. In his frustration, there is language in here that's a little different, and there's something to be said about the intentionality of that. But it's like more direct in the manga that he's just being disrespectful than some of the language that's used as slang. But that's just a very minimal change. I think that's like, if it's mischaracterizing someone and it comes up later, I think it's important to mention. With this, it's more to kind of show his maturity in the way he's speaking, which I don't really have a problem with that choice. The thing though that is added in the show that I don't really know how I feel about. In the show, they have this talk. He talks about how Furodate, the man reciting the will, in the show, there's a very nice light over all of them, and there's just this downcast shadow that isn't in the manga that kind of shows how they're all what they would presumably be listening to and feeling like. The scene, it's very dramatic. If you're looking up from Furodate's point of view, these are three very dangerous, murderous men, and they look like at any wrong turn they would snap. Which, when you talk about execution and tone, this isn't really the precedent that's set in the manga, but this is a nice little add-in that the show has, in my opinion, where these are characters of note, and Naoya thinks very little of them, but in reality they do have standing, especially in terms to their clan. And this is where, if you look at how things are staged, the characterization of Naoya having this carefree attitude doesn't work here, which is why they don't add it in. And I can see the characterization. If y'all were gonna stay true to manga, I would keep it in. But there's an aspect of Naoya in other ways that is more playful, that is just different in how they characterize it later in the episode, but that's for another time to get into. I also, something to note, I would have to really dive into it to figure out why they don't show the special grade sorcerer Yuki directly between the Zenin clan and going back to Yuji. They reference the Shibuya incident, and it might just be in order to draw more drama to Yuji's feelings because he is traumatized in a very specific way from the events, but that's only a piece of what that paneling is about. I'm getting ahead of myself though. There is a scene, and I remember I was talking to you about this then, where Mayamaki's mom is tying his shoe, and that's like, I mean, they are close in the interpretation of how he would treat women in the clan, but that has some foresight for the manga more than it does what happens at this point in time. And this is added. Like, she never ties his shoes in the manga before he goes out. In fact, a lot of this would be told, if you were going to stay true to the intent of the show, you can see from this, oh, he really doesn't like Megami because of this clan head situation. But there's like a level of bloodlust to him that's relevant for him later, and I won't say now because it hasn't come up in the show yet, but he goes to certain lengths because of this bloodlust that you can see in the manga here that's foreshadowed. And in the show, at about like 9 minutes where he's getting his shoes tied, he's pissed off, but there's like the blood vessels coming up around his eyes, there's this unnerving stare into space that he has at the thought of killing them both to take what's his. These are things that are definitely done with the intent to show that he's fucking crazy. Beyond him being an asshole, he's also just so narcissistic, it's insane, which is important to his character. You see he's an arrogant narcissist, but the way that it's done is a little bit different and a little bit more like trying in the manga than it is in the show. And this, it's just about what's being characterized by him. I think that's a little bit of a missed opportunity in the show that the manga obviously has.
I would chime in and add a little further here, I guess. I do agree with you, by the way, too, on a lot of this stuff. Just kind of going back to kind of how I felt about this, because again, I was watching this anime first. So the way it felt like for me, when you go into like some of these beginning scenes with Yuji, where he's washing the blood off of his hands, to me it gave me this perspective of whoever's directing this season has a deep appreciation for film and understanding of the way certain things should be kind of framed or displayed to show kind of like his level of calmness, right? Kind of that methodical thing of like doing the routine, the washing of the hands. And again, he's normalizing killing all these cursed spirits just off the beginning. And so to me, it was just interesting to see. But then afterwards, when I was with Daru and he's like, yo, just check out the manga panel, I felt a completely different way. Because the way I'm looking at the manga panel is I'm being introduced to Naoya's character, smug looking frog dude. From my perspective, I'm watching this and I'm like, there's just something about the way the scene is framed. There is a seriousness. There definitely is a coldness to the mansion that he's in, and almost in that sense, a lack of respect that he has for it too, when he's just kind of coming into the scene. It is captured, I would say, pretty accurately that he kind of says, hey, like your face is no good, and he puts his finger to his head. He's kind of has one eye closed. I will add here too that it's interesting because we move away from the fact that Yuji isn't being framed here initially, right? Cool. That scene where he's about to walk in, he's being disrespectful to his uncles, and there's that punch from one of the uncles, Junichi. He dodges the punch to kind of be like, he knows he's not gonna die from the punch, so he's like, but you're not gonna hurt me. And it's kind of like a I'm not gonna take this from you. And again, in this manga panel, he's welcoming the blade, right, from Mai and Maki's dad, and he literally has his hands out. He's lifting his chin up as to say, go ahead. You know, I know you're not gonna kill me, because it's against kind of his code of honor to do that. But when we cut to how it is in the anime, which to me I found to be cool, but it is different. He dodges the punch and he's holding the blade of the uncle to show this resistance. But when he's in the manga, it's like, you're not even on my level. Like, I know you're not gonna actually do that. Whereas the other dude, the other uncle, he just wanted to hurt him or like put him in his place, which he'll dodge. And so to me, I think it's an interesting choice. It shows that they're at odds, but to be honest, I found that to be unnecessary. Given what happens later, it seems a little unnecessary. It's kind of like they're missing the plot a little bit. Flip it to my take on the guy who's writing this or directing this season from an animation perspective, loves film. They just had that moment where he banged through the wall and now with his fist punched a hole and now the light's moving and floating. This to me is showing that they're still caught in the tension of that moment, which is again a clever choice to do because you can't necessarily have that displayed how tense this moment is in the manga, so they try to capture that in the anime, but it's not tense. What are they capturing in the anime? At one point they're just looking at him. These aren't towering figures that are making this guy feel unsafe to show how scary they are in this scene at like 7.5 minutes. They're just there. And to me, I think that's an interesting choice in the manga, that for Udate, he's just a dude. He's giving information. He's a messenger, right? And he's the one kind of bearing the weight, honestly, in a way, almost as if they're equals. They're kind of at the behest of this information. They don't know what's gonna happen. But here in the anime, it's kind of like, you better not say the wrong thing. For what? You're gonna have to do what he says anyway, because that's what the will is. I mean, I definitely agree with Daru's point here, and I didn't notice it, so shouts out to him for catching it. The fact that they choose to have Mai and Maki's mom be the one who's behind him at this point, obviously because of what happens later in the anime, which not to spoil, she does come up and it is relevant for her to kind of be showing up specifically, as opposed to this just kind of being like a general disdain that Naoya has for all the women in the clan, but that it's specifically for Mai and Maki's mom, as he's dissing and disrespecting Mai and Maki, and the fact that she's not going to do anything about it at this point in time. I don't know if there's anything you think on that in particular, or you want to jump to the next bit.
The last thing I'll say, just because I think you bring up the idea of how Furodate, the guy who's giving them the information, is already being portrayed. His importance and relevance is put just as equally in the scene. But when you go up and they're not these towering figures, they're in a room together, this is where directive choice kind of comes into play a lot. You get 3 people and they all have their own vibe to them. One is reserved, one is smug, one is in that dark place, tired of where it's at. There's more to be extrapolated there, but they don't. If you were to stage this is where, like, even when I mentioned sound score, right? In the scene in the show, I don't think there's much of a score because in drama, silence is loud. But in this way, if you're gonna highlight the fact that he's saying this stuff to them and they're listening, this is quick. The scene is drawn out longer than the actual manga would have it for, which isn't a good or bad thing, it just is. In this staging, the reversal or the reveal in the information that, oh, yeah, you're gonna be a clan leader, all this stuff, you have this opportunity. And even being upset that Ogi and Junichi have some say in what he's gonna do, it is what it is. But it's a situation that's not as dark and grim as the show puts it. He hears, imagine from this environment, environment that's more like, not even necessarily a slice of life, but something that's more lax in a regular pace for the show, to, oh yeah, and then Megami is going to be the clan head because of this clause in the will. And that's the point of drama from that point on. You have the person reading who knows this in force, and in the back of his head, he knows what's going to happen. This is when he chooses to be more serious. And for anyone watching, you're like, oh, now you get shit on. But with him, this is like world shattering. He's like, this is what he built his life for. And you could choose to show that in one moment and then double down on his crazy.
That's what Junichi's punch could have done.
Yeah.
No, literally.
Yeah.
So in the manga, he's definitely coming as equals. It feels more so the case. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I feel about that. I mean, if we get to the next section, there's a little bit with Choso and Yuji talking. Something that you'll actually see more, like you, the viewers, that we're going to talk about a lot. I don't really have to go over the panels right now. I can mention it briefly. Two things for me that are major about this, because I actually don't have much to say about this part. Yuji, after the Shibuya incident, adopts a very serious mindset in tone that I feel like is being a little missed in the show currently, where the difference between how he's drawn versus Sukuna, where he has this childlike whimsy to him, being green and being wanting to look at the best for people. And he really starts to look a lot more like Sukuna in subtle ways as things progress. And it starts subtle in the beginning. We'll get to it later with the Hakari episode, certain things in the colonies that come up. There's this dark element to him that isn't just in the serious scenes, but in how he is calm, and I don't want to say calm and calculated, but the way that he carries himself is just more in line with the strength that Sukuna has, the more that things progress. And the way that he's drawn is indicative of that in some of the visual cues and the ways he looks at people. I think the ways that he just loses himself, because there's a point in the series where he loses sight of himself through this kind of breaking down and building back up. And we're seeing the process of that better in the manga than we are in the show because of the way that he approaches certain people. I think in certain things it's less noticeable, but I've noticed it more because of how much I love to read the manga. For example, there's this 4-panel spread of Yuji, Choso, Naoya, and Yuta, where you kind of see the vibe and the mood that they all have. There's a lot of really great animation added to Yuji leading the curses to Choso, hitting them with a blood convergence, and I like it. I think it's really cool. I don't really care if that is or isn't there personally. I think it's a good addition. I don't really have any problem with it. I think that the one thing I would say about it is that intentionality is important, right? So the way that, and this is hard to do in anything story-based, the way that someone is in, like for Yuji in the manga, the way that he's portrayed needs to be consistent in all of his actions, even in the additions, which is something that becomes more important in later episodes than in this one. I mean that to say, if he is not showing much emotion when dealing with these curses, that should be consistent when he's fighting the curses, right? If he has a plan, if he's not surprised by things, that should be very apparent when he's dealing with everything. If there's this level of fatigue that is also clear, like I think there's a certain level of fatigue, and I don't know what to call it. It's just a different thing in the manga than it is in the show. There's not verbal communication in the manga as much as there is in the show between Choso and Yuji until really Naoya shows up. I mean, there are some times when they talk about stuff, but there's like a different characterization, which is fine. There's a way that Choso sees Yuji that is not correctly panned and paced. They call them tones in manga, where you have this background. In the manga, they have Yuji from Choso looking back over his shoulder, for example. And it's Yuji in a darker light than he's really shown. And you have in the show him punching through this curse, which is cool, but different. You have, whenever Choso addresses Yuji, a bit of surprise, which isn't really shown in the show, even though they're around each other like this, because Yuji is like outside of himself in a lot of thought, which isn't something that comes across more. When you really get into choreography of fights, which is something I like a lot, and kind of what they show and promote, that's a lot of the meat and potatoes too of what I'm going to be talking about. There's visual things that are happening that are great. I personally like them a lot. It's the merriment of what this characterization, what action as a character does, that is going to be kind of important to highlight.
I agree. I think the thing that would add on here, Yuji does have a certain seriousness to him that is not necessarily captured in the anime. We don't really see him smile. We don't see him hesitate. We don't see him concerned. He's just locked in since the Shibuya incident. I would say that's kind of the way I saw it when I had seen the the anime first, it just looked pretty cool for me. But then when I'm looking at the manga, I mean, he's just completely serious. There's no point at him where he really is thinking about anything else other than just killing and lining up all the cursed spirits so that Choso can use piercing blood. I will say it's interesting that the way this was positioned in the manga is that he kills the flying squirrel spirit later, even though this happens in the beginning of the fight sequence in the anime. And so it kind of changes the shift. And I would say that, in my opinion, this is something that I understand why it's different from the manga. And if anything, I agree with the choice that Yuji just completely knocks the heck out of this flying squirrel spirit. But Choso's in the background. He's on the other side of traffic in the lane. Like, he's on the complete other side. But in the anime, there's a level of trust that Choso is showing to Yuji that he's gonna let this multiple armed monk kind of looking spirit get really, really close to Choso, like he's about to kill him, and Choso just completely trusting him that he's gonna kill the spirit before it even touches him or gets to him. Because then this shows us not just having Choso tell us he's really that good. I am impressed. Wow, this guy, little brother, you're so impressive. You know, it kind of hammers that in a little bit further. I will say, again, this seriousness that is on Yuji, right? When he asks him in a moment, your father had stitches on his forehead, didn't he? But there's just a seriousness on his face. He's kind of like, how did you know? Like, you must know something I don't. Again, this is like foreshadowing afterwards. We don't have to get necessarily into it because it could be a spoiler for cats that don't know. But as far as Yuji's characterization, again, just anything, obviously he's getting a compliment. He's like, oh, impressive little brother. And maybe he'll like loosen up a little. But then the second it's anything else, he's just like, wait, what? You did what? And then again, just him thinking about just killing her spirits. If there's any final thoughts, if that's it.
Yeah, I will, I think, talk about some of the story direction and the action, because you're saying some of the points you brought up remind me of something important. You get these manga panels, Yuji is definitely more serious. He's not blinking, he's not showing worry. He might get a little frown from his eyebrows, and there's like cues for them to do stuff, but really, when he's going through, I think that when you get into like the paneling, if he's jumping through buildings, jumping off of ledges, going through stuff, he's not gonna look over his shoulder to see where one of these curses are. He is a train in a line. He doesn't have anything to worry about, especially by this point. None of these curses are gonna physically be able to really hurt him either. There's like a sense of, this is my job. I mean, that cog speech that he gives to Hikari is the byproduct of a mindset we're seeing now, early steps of it now. He is by function here to kill these curses. They've been doing this. They're gonna keep doing it. This is their responsibility. This is all they have to prove their worth. I mean, you get it from the last season. Yuji's literally saying, I have to deal with Sukuna or my life literally has no meaning. This is his existence. If he's not doing this, he's no better than a mass murdering serial killer. That's his mindset and his reality right now. So he's not gonna be worried about this. He's not gonna be short of breath. The things he's experienced right before this is nothing to him. While I'll welcome any cool shot of Choso. Especially in the show, when they may give him, they give him the glow up. In the manga, he is, I think it's very informed. Maybe the animators knew that people love Choso as well, so they're like, let's make him look as cool as possible. But he's definitely in the same mindset with Yuji. I would not say he's happy where he's at. I would say he feels he's in the right place taking responsibility, because his brothers died on his watch, and this is another brother who he almost killed. And he is almost like, I have to make this right now, especially since Yuji's one of my brothers. He's not, well, I don't dislike him smiling and seeing that Yuji protected him. I think even if Yuji did, he would not smile. He'd still have a face like the one in the manga when he's thinking about where Yuji's been and come from. Yeah. Which again is characterization. And in same parts, they're showing the action and adding the extra scene, which is cool. But I mentioned it before, but you have to be consistent with how he's being shown. I would want to see Yuji in this dark place while doing this, to show the battling concepts he has with his character, his identity, why he's doing what he's doing, the intentionality, different than from now. In the beginning, I think it's cool that we get this in, because you don't need to start that heavy in a show. But it is important to note that with the rest of the series, it sets a specific tone. And if the tone in the manga is different, then this is where deviations start. I really love the show. I really appreciate where it's coming from, because it is done so well that I can even have this type of conversation about it. That's all I'd really have to say about it. With that bit, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Zen, about the show.
I agree in general with a lot of stuff you said. I think that there's a choice to juxtapose Naoya to Yuji, and I don't necessarily feel like I'm getting that vibe in the anime. I think the anime is more so just trying to set the stage page and tell me a story for what happens next, which is fine, again, if that's the intention. In the manga, I'm definitely seeing Naoya being lackadaisical, putting up a front, kind of being these different people, right? He's acts different in front of the cat who comes and reads the will, and then he's super pissed off afterwards, right? When it's just him, has to accept the fact he's gonna have to face off with Megumi now. But then we look at Yuji, he's so hurt by the fact that he murdered in his body, right? Obviously it was Sukuna, but he had murdered all the people in the Shibuya incident. So in his perspective, he needs to either murder an equivalent number, if not double or triple, of cursed spirits. He's got to save an equivalent or double, triple number of people. Again, I think I see that a lot more in the manga, and I can appreciate it too. And in terms of if that's being accurately reflected in the anime, I would honestly say no. That being said, I think the anime is just trying to tell us more of like a story. Again, I definitely see this jump to film a lot more, and an appreciation of that is what the vibe I'm getting from whoever is the director for this season. Again, I agree with you, Daru. I think I can appreciate a lot of how the anime is being done. I can appreciate the manga. Maybe this is part of my bias too, just kind of like not really being super into the manga in general, being just a general fan of animation, but also like an appreciation for anime. If I were to compare this to something else, I would think of like The Killing Joke, for example. To me, with a lot of the main important points, it's very one-to-one, you know? Again, it's Batman, it's different. I understand it's a budget and stuff, but at the same time, JJK fandom, the money is there, the budget is there, and so at this point, not that there's much to critique, again, shouts out to the animators for making it work and doing what they do. I would say this is just definitely an artistic or stylistic choice. I would assume that the Gege Akutami, him as a writer, that he's cool with this or can appreciate some of the nuances of having what his story is being brought to life. I think that there's something to be said that the point is still understood by the fandom in general. I don't remember really people saying anything as a negative about this first episode. I think a lot of people were super excited for season 3. Definitely super interested to see any like battles and like one-on-ones, 1v1s of some cats. That would be like kind of final thoughts for me, unless there's anything else for you. But there.
I think you wrapped up pretty well. The only other thing I might say is some of the more important landmarks of characterization when we talk about more episodes, it'll highlight the differences between good and bad, like animation choices that really help and some that hurt what the manga is trying to say and what the show's intentionality is. Stay tuned for the next video. We're gonna talk more about this and dive in. And if you got this far in and you heard everything we were yapping about for this, tell us your favorite manga panel, your favorite moment in the first episode this far, like halfway in. Check out more of our stuff. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel to see what we actually have going on, and we will see you in the next video.